Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I thought it was a good idea to just have a quick chat with you all about what is happening with this government announcement, what's the latest, and the appalling situation which we find. Let me just get this camera right. The appalling, sorry, I can't talk to somebody at the moment. The impact the government announcement is having on people, and I'll take some of your questions as well very, very shortly. Let me just sort this camera out. I apologise, but let me just sort this camera out. How is that? Does that look better? Sorry. Okay, sorry everyone. Let me share this. Okay, so basically we were all getting ready for Eid. I think all of you, we're all getting ready for Eid, and then we had this announcement around 9 o'clock this evening from the Health Secretary saying that the government's Gold Committee had met and had decided, because the spike of cases in West Yorkshire, in Greater Manchester and in some parts of East Lancashire, that they were going to introduce new restrictions in terms of how many people can actually go and visit. So you cannot go, and we'll take your questions in a second, but you cannot visit families from midnight, which is like in 30 minutes time. And I spoke to Downing Street this evening. They weren't able to give me any clarification about what this meant in terms of Eid. Now, the first thing is the threat from the virus is real. We know that because we've had friends, we've had family members, acquaintances, neighbours who've died sadly over these past few months. So for us, it's real. And we know that so many people out there have made huge sacrifices, whether it's the NHS, whether it's frontline public sector workers. Everybody's making a real difference to the lives of the communities that we live in. But what has been absolutely shameful beyond, I can't even really, and I use the S word on social media tonight, and for that I apologise. But how can we find ourselves in a situation 3 hours before you bring in a ban, which you full well know? And if you don't know, if the government did not know that the Eid festival was happening on Friday, then it's a dereliction of their duties. The fact that they don't understand that this is such an important festival. And so many of you, and we'll take some people on, so if anybody wants to join me, just put a request in and we'll add you very, very shortly. But families have travelled across the country. Families from the south have come up north to have the opportunity to spend a day with their loved ones. And under the rules, they're breaking the law by staying at their loved people's houses. And I don't know, I just feel really, really angry. And when I spoke to Downing Street this evening, they weren't able to tell me what their plans were in terms of how you were going to actually police this. So if you live in Burnley, for example, you live in Nelson, you live in Pendle, you live in Rochdale, you live in Oldham, Bolton, Bury, Wigan, Stockport, have I missed Manchester? The parts of West Yorkshire include Bradford, Keighley, Halifax, Kirkley, so the Halifax, Huddersfield, Dewsbury and Batley are the places that have gone under additional restrictions. So what that actually means is you cannot go and visit another household unless it's your own bubble. So if you live in a family, you can continue to have Eid. But if you are visiting a loved one, a friend, a relative or neighbour, that you cannot do. And the law is changing from 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes. So I thought it'd be interesting to come online and take some of your questions around that and take any of your comments. I am really, really angry. I know you're all angry because, as I said, families are gathering. People travel today, in some cases yesterday, the day before, to be with their loved ones. We've ensured that we followed the lockdown restrictions these past few months by the letter. You look at our mosques still, when the government says 1 metre distance is possible in restaurants and pubs, we've still done 2 metres in the mosque. And I just think it just demonstrates to you how out of touch the Conservative government has been on this. It's a disgusting decision to be made. And one more thing before we take your questions and your comments. Yeah, I can go to the mosque and I can pray side by side with social distancing at hundreds, if not thousands of people, but I can't go to my mother's house. I can't go to my brother's house or my sister's house. And I just think it's absolutely disgusting. And the other thing is, where I'm not, and let me be absolutely clear about this, I am not against the government's COVID-19 rules and regulations and advice. Let's be very clear about that. We will follow those guidance. But what we think is unacceptable, if you want people to sign up, you want people to follow the new guidance, then the least you can do, yeah, is make sure that you prep people. So if you get 2 days notice or 3 days notice, then at least people are ready for something that's going to happen. But what this government did, they apparently had a meeting this afternoon around 3 o'clock in the Cabinet Office. And Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, has been, had his statement ready to release to the press at 9 o'clock. So he had opportunities to release statements, to have these meetings, to have these dialogue with politicians. So where were these politicians? Where were the politicians? Where was the forward warning of a community to say that we've seen a spike of cases in your particular town? And why is it that we're going to have to introduce further restrictions? I just think it's disgusting, honestly, beyond comprehension that our government should be doing this. And as I said, we're not going to understand what the circumstances are around this. And even now at this late stage, we cannot know what the new guidance is. We know that the restrictions have come in place. We know that those restrictions have been implemented, and that will be from 24 minutes time. So if you, I still don't get this. If you are at home, have come, apologies for that, loved ones have come to your family home, then what they're supposed to do. Now, when I spoke to somebody from the Department of Health, they told me that that they would have to go back home, wherever home is. And I think that's really appalling, and I really just don't understand it. So let me take what we're going to have to do. So, and then the final thing in terms of updates, and then we'll take your comments and questions, is around mosque. Okay, you just reminded me. So I just read Saj Ahmed's comment, and it just reminded me. I was just on the radio a few moments ago, and that's the point I made, that we had a Conservative politician, an MP, who basically said, "Oh well, some BME people are not following the rules correctly," and I think what appalling racism and xenophobia that you target BME communities, and yet you were completely quiet when Liverpool fans were celebrating in Anfield. You were completely silent when Leeds fans were were celebrating Ellen Road. You were silent when Jack Charlton's funeral was going on up in the northeast. And yet suddenly you want to demonise and attack ethnic minority communities. I just think it's an appalling dereliction of duty, diabolic on the part of the government. As I said, we're not against new rules. We're not against following restrictions as we've had. But what is unacceptable is that you introduce it 2 or 3 hours before they come into force and the night before Eid. So if there is anybody online who wants to talk to us, so can you meet a household outside Greater Manchester? Let's go to the top. Let's go to the top, and I'll take your comments, questions. Again, anybody wants to join me in sharing their anger, as long as you keep it clean, I'll be happy to do that. Let's get through some of these comments. Muzammil Shah Sahab, Assalamu alaikum, good to see you. Okay, let's have a look. Who's going to... So Muzammil Shah Sahab says, how does the government plan on policing this? Yeah, I don't know. Are they going to knock doors and ask for people's evidence of their address, if they live in that house or not? I just don't know how they're going to police it. Shahid Latif says, Assalamu alaikum, Shaf, just at work. Eid Mubarak to you and your lovely family. Good. Love you, brother, always. Love you too, my bro. I hope your shift is as easy and peaceful as possible. And inshallah, you have a fantastic Eid. Let me just get a few more on here. Let's go through these comments. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to get comments. Zulf Aziz, my brother, hope you're well, says, shocking. You're very polite, Zulf. Mohammed, what's the law that backs new supposedly law which steamrolls over the law? So the government passed emergency legislation in March around the coronavirus and COVID-19 restrictions. That legislation still stands, and it's as part of that legislation that they've introduced new guidelines. And then a couple of weeks ago, they also introduced additional powers for local authorities to make those decisions to shut down, have local lockdowns, and that's what's happened here. And the other thing you have to remember is that Leicester, who is still under restrictions, they are also in the process of having those restrictions continued. So let's get this up. Coincidentally, diabolical decision, in my humble opinion, Zulf Aziz. I won't be following this, it's a disgrace. Rochdale, yes, Rochdale is part of Greater Manchester, so the 10 boroughs of Greater Manchester include, let me see if I get that right, Rochdale, Bolton, Bury, Tameside, which includes Ashton. You've got Manchester, you've got Salford, you've got Stockport, who else have we got? You've got Wigan. Have I missed anybody? Wigan as well, that's 8, and there's 2 missing. You've got Trafford as well. And there's one more, Oldham. How can I miss Oldham? Anyway, they're the 10 boroughs of Greater Manchester. West Yorkshire, you've got Bradford, you've got Dewsbury, Batley, what else you've got? Sorry, I'm just trying to get there. Dewsbury, Batley, Halifax, Huddersfield, Cleckheaton, in terms of West Yorkshire. And then on East Lancashire, you've got Burnley, Nelson, Pendle, Colne, Blackburn are the places in the of Blackburn. And if you are going for Eid namaz, because a lot of the mosques have been open and they are COVID-19 protected, so they meet the guidelines, so you can have your Eid namaz as well. But which is really bizarre. You can go and read Eid with thousands of different people, but you cannot meet family members, as I said. Nasir Iqbal says, I understand your point. If they were going to put parts of the country on the lockdown, they should have done so before, not 3 hours before. Absolutely, you're right, Nasir. That's what I'm saying. Give us a few days' notice, then people would have been able to adapt themselves and their family circumstances. But you're asking people, to not meet their loved ones when they've already arrived. So many people's families have already arrived at their parents' house, or their brothers or their sisters, or their in-laws, and been told, sorry, you can't stay. So will we be able to visit a graveyard in a different area? So graveyards are exempt from this announcement. This announcement is just to do with visiting each other's households. So not mosques, not pubs, not restaurants, not... incidentally, when I asked the question earlier on, so I can go to the pub and meet my family there. And they said, yeah. Or to a restaurant or to a park. And they said yes, but a few moments later, I was on the radio. I was on BBC Radio, and I got the latest from the Department of Health. Said you can only meet if you go to a restaurant, you have to stay with your own bubble, i.e., your own family, the people who live in your own house. So that will be an issue. Arslan Bey says, hours before Eid and hours before the hottest day of the year, in my opinion, the government panicked and made a last-minute decision. No, they didn't make a last-minute decision. I understand that they've been talking about this for a few days, and yet decided to wait until the very last moment to make the announcement. So the idea that they made this decision last minute, I don't accept. The fact that Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, had his statement ready to be issued to the press at 9 o'clock suggests that he was well aware of this, and why, as part of Black Lives Matter, part of racism, and the fact that institutions should be reflecting about the impact this has had, Black Lives Matter and George Floyd's murder has had. It shines a light on the disconnect that exists in highest levels of government, who just don't have any knowledge about what is going out there in communities, and that's a big issue. So that's a big issue. So let's get through. This is a joke. This is Jangir Munir. What's a joke? Why is it just in predominantly Asian areas a night before Eid? Yeah, I make that point. As I said, we do not want, we do not what's the word? We do want to follow the guidance, and we will follow the guidance, including myself, because at the end of the day, it's the law of the land. But the way it was done, the communication around there, the last minute, it's been appalling, and no wonder people in the Muslim community thinking, wait a minute, this is something which is impacting on our communities. Saj Ahmed says, Birmingham hasn't been placed in these new restrictions, but it's no different. Our shops are breeding corona. Well, Birmingham, remember, had a really high spike at the beginning of this pandemic in April and May. They've been able to manage it as best as you can. But yeah, the other parts of the country, you will see, Leicester, for example, who had a massive spike. But yeah, sadly, lots of communities which are deprived communities are featured in the top 10, 20 places, and so we've got to be absolutely cautious and careful. I was at the supermarket the other day, and there was this guy, like, he was right in my backside pretty much, and I turned around, I had my mask on and everything, and I just turned around and said, wait a minute, where's your social distancing? And he just, like, muttered something under his breath and moved away, and it's that sort of thing that we have to consider. So if you're just joining us, the government restrictions come in place in Greater Manchester, East Lancashire and some parts of West Yorkshire, and you cannot visit other family members' homes because the spike has happened because people are visiting each other's homes. That's the government guidance. It doesn't affect mosques because mosques are already COVID-19 protected. So anybody on here who wants to come on and have a chat with me, just message me. Can we not get some kind of petition just to raise our concern? Yeah, I mean, I've certainly raised my concerns at the highest level in government. I've spoken to Downing Street this evening and told them how angry our community is. As I said, we are more receptive to getting this virus. We have followed the guidance. Our mosque have followed the guidance. And, some of us haven't seen our loved ones for weeks. We haven't hugged them. We haven't kissed them. Families we've not seen in many, many months. And we'll follow the guidance, but this is no way to get people to follow the rules and increase confidence in your decision-making process. Saj Ahmed says, personally, they should have brought these restrictions in the night before the Liverpool celebrations. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not, I think Liverpool, you look at, you also look at where else is Liverpool. You've got Liverpool, you've got Leeds, who were also celebrating promotion, and you saw the thousands of people in crowds out there at football stadiums. You saw the funeral of Jack Charlton, for example, thousands upon thousands. You saw VE there, Victory in Europe parades and parties across the country, and we didn't see these people on the right wing kicking up a fuss. And it's appalling that tonight a Conservative politician, I think his name was Craig Whitaker, blaming some elements of the BME community who can't seem to follow the guidance. That's their exact words. I was on LBC radio earlier on, and that's what they've been saying. I'm conscious to see this as well, and people really want to go to sleep, so I do as well. So I just go through the final comments. You're getting carried away. The government is not the law. The government is an authority. They're a business. Notice in itself has legal connotations. If you study the law, you would know that the government's guidance is equivalent to some advice for you, my friend. It's not law. Well, actually, you're wrong on that, Mr. Qadri Jilani Saab. The government bill that was passed in March gives the government the authority, so that's the law of the land, to introduce these restrictions. And a few weeks ago, the government also introduced new powers for local authorities to introduce local lockdowns. So in places like Rochdale, they introduced advice that's now been strengthened to actually be, you cannot go and visit each other's homes, and that's what. So you've got an opinion on that, but I don't think it's a correct opinion. Mohammed Kamran says, what happens if we go to others' houses? Well, if you get caught, you will potentially get arrested and fined. Yeah, Faisal Khan Saab, great of you to join us, sir. I could have understood closing places where thousands of people could meet completely strangers in pubs, restaurants, gyms, but to apply the restrictions to families who are already interacting, yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right, yeah. So you can do all this stuff. Asian restaurants on Winslow Road open. So I understand the restaurants and shisha cafes and people are open. Interesting, on Winslow Road, they've decided to shut down the street. So from the top end, university side of Oxford Road, to, I think it's Dickinson Road. The whole road will be closed to traffic. So that's Winslow Road. Looks like it's a divide and conquer tactic. I don't know. I want to believe the government. I really do, that they want to stop the spread of this virus and the spike in cases. But the way they've gone ahead and done it, the way they've announced it, 2 hours before Eid starting, is just absolutely appalling. So it says, Asif Khan, can you meet a household outside Greater Manchester? Really good question. I don't know the answer to that. So if you live in Greater Manchester and you're going to Birmingham for Eid, or you're going to Stoke-on-Trent, or you're going to London, or you're Glasgow, Scotland, how does that work? Really good question. I'm not going to tonight get an answer for you, because obviously it's Eid tomorrow, so I really want to switch off and spend time with my family and loved ones. But yeah, Wajid Hussein says, prepared a lot of food. What do I do now? Samosa, pakora, and rice. Wajid, I live in Rochdale, so if you want to drop some off at my place, I'd be happy to eat it. Send me the location. Basharat Hussein, send me the location. I can help you too. Sheikh Abu Adam Ahmed Al-Shirazi joining us. So yeah, as I said, we are not against the government introducing new rules. What we're against is the way it's done, and then that's the most appalling thing. Will we be able to visit a graveyard in a different area? My understanding is graveyards it doesn't apply to graveyards, so you can go and visit a graveyard and pay your respects. Is it just advice, or is it illegal to visit family? My understanding is, as part of the government's COVID-19 legislation that was passed in March, as I said, and strengthened a few weeks ago, it's not advice anymore. It's the rules, and it's illegal to visit other people's homes in those areas, as I indicated. Masood Sadiq, brother from Bradford, my cousin. Salam once again, appalling decision. Let's have a look. Salam Bhai Ahad, Assalamu alaikum. Eid Mubarak to you and your family, especially your dad. Everyone is invited to my place. I was planning on having a barbecue anyway. I suggest those who are lucky enough to have a garden eat and celebrate Eid in the garden. The weather is going to be a scorcher, 29 degrees. The restrictions apply to meeting indoors. Yeah, that's true. But as the Department of Health said this evening to me, no, we can't have people going to visit people's homes and then sit in their gardens. No, we can't have that. So there's contradictions in the way the guidance has come out. Wakefield as well. Thank you, Jackie Green. Tells me it's Wakefield as well. Okay, so Tosif Taz Hussein says, I'm just trying to get this. He says, deaf on agenda against highly Asian populated areas can still go to pubs and restaurants as the virus cannot be caught there. Apparently so. As I said, you've got to have a consistent message. And yes, our community is more receptive to get this and more likely to die from it. And we've got to take that seriously. But when you bring in new rules, and remember these rules apply to the whole of Rochdale, the whole of Oldham, the whole of Manchester, the whole of places in West Yorkshire that have been locked down. So it's not just Muslims, it's a policy that applies to everybody. But yeah, there's real concern in Muslim communities. Nobody's been brave enough to want to come on. Salam, the timing of this decision is very poor and targeting the community. I don't know, Shoki Hussein, if you can get on and we can have a chat with you. Shoki Hussein is the councillor in Blackburn, and he's done some really fantastic work these past couple of weeks whilst Blackburn has shot up in the sort of table in spike of viruses. I don't know if we can get you on there, Shaukat Hussain, to talk to me directly. And that is a real worry. But as I said, the decisions are appalling. But apparently, some of these local authorities and the councillors were involved in these discussions. And if they were, what indication did they give to members in the community to be prepared for such a last-minute announcement? So there's lots of questions there for local leaders. Muhammad Qadi Jilani's legislation is not the same as law. A legislation once passed is the law, brother. Am I wrong? MPs vote on a piece of legislation, it's passed, the Queen signs it, it becomes an act of law. So it's the law. We all saw VE street parties. Tomorrow is all about Eid street parties. Yeah, I mean, that's another way people could do. We could basically have Eid parties in the streets. How about that? Yeah, that's a good idea. Wakefield not in the list of lockdown areas. Okay, thank you, Rahman Khan. I know you're active in that community of Wakefield, so I'm sure you're right. The councils, Faisal Shaukat says the councils were not informed. Well, it's not what the Department of Health has said. The Department of Health is saying these conversations are happening. So let's see if we can get some of you on there. I'm just shocked. And as I said, I really want to believe our government. I really want to follow the rules because I follow them by the book. My grandma died in April. And, you know, apart from immediate family who were able to pray her janazah, you know, so many of our family weren't able to attend. And she was loving, she was very beloved and loving to so many people within our extended family and community, and nobody was allowed to come. And we had to make those sacrifices. People have lost their loved ones. And all we're asking for is honesty, and all we're asking for is that the rules are followed as they should have been listed. And for me, I think that's the most important thing. We must not find ourselves in a situation that you spring this on us when people have already travelled hundreds of miles to be with their loved ones, and then you're saying to them, I'm sorry, you can't stay tonight, you have to get into your car and go back home. Then you've not done any shopping, you know, you might not have brought anything in for Eid. What do you do in those circumstances? The shops are all closed. I mean, it's just absolutely appalling. Sayyid Mohammed Kamran Shah Saab from Batley, shocking behaviour from the government. You wouldn't see them do this. Yeah, and that's real worry. Would the government have done this if it was Christmas Eve? Would they have done it? Would they have made a last minute announcement on Christmas Eve at 9 o'clock? I don't think they would. So why is it acceptable to do it when other festivals are happening? And I'm not just talking about Muslims here. You could do it when it's Diwali, you could do it in a Jewish festival or a Hindu festival. You know, we don't seem to matter at all in some parts of government, particularly in the Conservative Party. You go see Alam Rock, Ladypool Road, Stratford Road. Look, at the end of the day, everybody's, you know, tired and really wants to get back to normal life, but we can't get back to normal life until the virus is over, the pandemic is over, and we have to follow these rules. But, you know, and we will follow the rules. I work for the government. I'm not going to break the law, but I'm really struggling, you know, to see how I can balance what the government's announcements are with my own personal circumstances. And each family and each individual, you'll have to do that yourself. But as I said, it's absolutely appalling. Chaudhry Yadav says they've been rammed the whole time. Let's see if we can bring Council Gulfraz and Nawaz on. Let's see if we can bring you on, sir. I don't know if you're still online. Let's get him on camera. Okay, he's not on. I thought you were on Council Gulfraz. Where about in West Yorkshire? Kes Hussain says. So West Yorkshire, we've got Bradford, Keighley, Cleckheaton, Batley, Dewsbury, Huddersfield, Halifax. I think that's it. Halifax, Dewsbury, Todmorden, you know, sort of Hebden Bridge, Salisbury Bridge, these sort of areas. So you've got the Calderdale, Kirklees councils, West Yorkshire. Obviously, you've got Bradford and Keighley. They're the only ones that I know of. That might change as we move forward. So that's the areas in West Yorkshire. In East Lancashire, you've got Burnley, Nelson, Pendle, Colne and Blackburn. And in Greater Manchester, you've got the 10 boroughs which make up Greater Manchester. So you've got Manchester, you've got Salford, you've got Stockport, you've got Trafford, you've got... did I say Stockport? Yeah, I did say Stockport. You've got Bolton, you've got Bury, you've got Rochdale, you've got Wigan, and you've got... Did I say Trafford? Yeah. You've got... there's two more. Oldham, and you've got Tameside. Got there. Bradford, Kirklees and Calderdale. Thank you very much, Mohammed Ali. That's me. Always good to see you put in broadcasting. Eid Mubarak to you, everybody. And then we've got the situation where sort of the utter chaos that you see in Leicestershire. You've got the government continuing to have the lockdown in Leicester, the city of Leicester. But around Leicester, in Leicestershire, which is predominantly Conservative councils, they've decided to lift the restrictions in them areas. I'd just like to see the figures, maybe, and see how they base their decision on that. Okay, let's get to the end of this. Asaj Ahmed, disagree with the timing, not the decision. I'm of the same opinion. If these rules were brought in to help and protect people, then I would support that, as I've done all the way through this pandemic. But it was just the way it was made. The announcement was made, giving you 2 hours notice. That was a real big worry for me. Let's come to the end. Asif Khan says clearly aimed at the Muslim community. Well, I mean, that's because if you don't explain it to people and you don't introduce it, then you get that mistrust and you get people feeling very nervous and resentful that it's been targeted towards community. You might, understanding and working the way governments work, it's particularly not targeted at one community, but you've got people in the Conservative Party, as we've seen tonight from a Conservative MP who suddenly says some people in the BME communities don't want to follow the rules and the restrictions. How will they monitor this? And will the police be involved? Well, we're waiting to hear from what the Council of Chief Police Officers. They've not said anything tonight. So are they going to knock on every single door? It's just not practical. Shame on the government. So we're coming to ends, I hope. As I said, we are not against the government guidance changing. We're not against local authorities making decisions to keep us safe because they're doing it to keep us all safe. I accept that. But it's just the way the announcement was made. It was when the announcement was made. We knew on Monday that the government, that with a spike in Blackburn, in Rochdale, in Oldham, we knew of this at the beginning and end of the week. So why didn't they say at the beginning of the week, right, we're going to introduce these changes and they're going to come into force on Friday, midnight on Friday? Then people would have been able to manage that as best as we can. I'm not going to bring anybody in now just because I want to finish, because I've got to read my Shah. Wishing everybody... Okay, Shaukat is coming online. Let's see if we can add Shaukat Saab. Saj Ahmed, wishing everyone on this session a very happy and safe Eid. Make the most of it. Thanks Allah. We also have nice weather predicted. Spare thought for the less fortunate who won't have a proper Eid for other deprived reasons, so consider us lucky. Okay, so we tried to bring Shaukat in, but he doesn't want to come in. Okay, racially motivated, absolutely disgusting. Well, I think because if you don't explain to people how it is, then you get a situation where people feel as if they are upset and it's directly targeted towards one particular community. Picking up Qurbani meat is acceptable and delivering it to family and friends. Yeah, so you can't go into the house, but you can outside deliver it at the doorstep, but you can't go inside. I think that's what the issue is. Okay. I hope people found this useful. It's also the Jewish fasting festival, so the government is aiming at small communities. Thank you, Rakib Masood, for sharing that. I didn't know that was the case. Councillor Mohammed Hanif is online as well from Pendle. So as I said, I really hope that people understand we are not saying we're not going to follow the rules. We will follow the rules. And it's going to be difficult for so many families. I don't know how I'm going to balance out the needs of these rules with the needs of my family. We've followed the rules, to the letter, as I said, and we'll continue to do that. But I just think it's going to be really, really difficult to manage this. And I hope that once we get past Eid tomorrow, that those conversations are happening with governments and, councils, and making sure that this sort of thing doesn't ever happen again. Doesn't happen to us, doesn't happen at Christmas. I don't want it to happen on Christmas Eve. Okay, I don't want people on Christmas Eve to suddenly just, find out that the government changes its guidance. It shouldn't happen to Muslims, shouldn't happen to Jews or Christians or Hindus or Sikhs or any faith. We should have the rules as they are. Okay, I'm coming to the end, I hope. Is Ras Salam, Israr Salam, okay, I don't know what that is. Eid Mubarak, Janab Shafiq, Eid Mubarak, looking top as always. I feel a bit rough and tired. Is this a racist lockdown? Muhammad Kamran Hussain says. I don't think it is. It would apply if it was just for Muslims, but it applies to everybody in those towns. So in Rochdale, you have a majority of people who are not Muslim or brown, and the majority are white. So it applies to them as much as it applies to any member of the community. Okay, that's something... I think they should have done lockdown for the Oldham only in Greater Manchester. So Mujtaba Ahmed, I think the situation is that the spike of virus is going up in Bury, it's going up in Bolton, it's going up in Rochdale, it's gone up in Oldham, it's gone up in Manchester. And so Greater Manchester as an authority decided to introduce their own rules and expand it to the whole of Greater Manchester because it makes it easy to manage. Muhammad Qadi Jilani always argues with me about the law and legislation. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know who taught you that, but legislation is put to Parliament. MPs and members of the House of Lords scrutinise the legislation. They have amendments, they accept it, and then it's voted on. And once it's passed, it goes to the Queen. She signs it. It's royal assent it's called, and then that piece of legislation comes into force. So maybe you can talk to a lawyer. Okay, coming to the end, I promise. Mohammed Riyasat Saab, nice to hear you. I know I need to return your call. Faisal Shaukat, I'm assuming it's Councillor Faisal Shaukat, threw council off guard completely. We had no idea. Thanks for coming on, but couldn't get through for some reason. Okay, well, maybe we can schedule something with Shaukat. And I'm obviously been off this week on British Muslim TV, my TV program. So I think we might cover it on Wednesday, inshallah. So I'll touch base with you, Shaukat Saab. Salah Nadeem Arif says, Salam, is there any data available which clearly shows that the rise has been due to household meetings? Yeah, it's one of the questions which a number of reputable journalists are asking the questions. Shahid Maqsood Qibla, Eid Mubarak. Coming on, it's beautiful to hear from people around towns in the northeast and northwest. Qadri Jilani Sahib, I don't want to argue with the semantics of what the law is. I'm coming to the end. What law determined by the church? The main question is why. Main question, it is why now. Yeah, I mean, in terms of making the decision, when was that decision made? And once the decision made, why did they announce it at 9 o'clock and not announce it yesterday? Simple question. And were they not aware that thousands of people, thousands of Muslims across this country were getting together with their loved ones? I know families, I know friends who've travelled hundreds of miles to go to their parents' house for Eid. They didn't do that on Choti Eid, but they're doing this. Mohammed Khalid Jilani says, coincidentally, the English law lecturer was called Elizabeth. I think she needs to go back to school herself. I know legislation. I used to work in House of Commons. Once the legislation is passed, it receives royal assent and then becomes a law of the land. And that's what's happened in this case. Emergency legislation in March, and then recently more power has been stepped up. So look, I'm going to finish there. I just thought people will find it useful. And I find it useful because I was so angry. I've done quite a few media interviews this evening. I was so angry, and so I just wanted to come on and tell you how I feel and how people are feeling out there. So have a great Eid. I hope it's safe. Keep yourself, your families, and your loved ones safe. Be safe when you go to Eid in the morning. Remember to pray for me and pray for my family and pray for the whole Ummah. Whatever you do, keep safe. Yeah, Mohammed Kajilani wants. I mean, we're going to have a debate on this, Mohammed Kajilani. So legislation can be put before the judges. Legislation. So the three pillars. You've got the government, you've got the legislator, and then you've got judicial oversight of that legislation. And it's the legal system who will pass judgment on the laws that have been passed and if they're illegal. The Supreme Court, for example. So the Supreme Court can't introduce new laws. Only Parliament introduces new law. But they can, oversight, judicial oversight is the responsibility of the law courts. Anyway, I'm going to finish there because otherwise we'll just get into a real long debate, Mohammed Khatib Jilani. But anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic Eid. Please keep safe. And remember, once we've got Eid over with tomorrow, then on Saturday, people should really be following the rules. I personally will be following the rules because that's what we have to do. But I understand how angry people are. But I hope whatever you do, you keep safe. Have a great time with your families. And inshallah, I'll see you very, very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.